The night my life began to collapse started with a phone call that was never meant for me. I remember the exact moment because it was one of those quiet evenings when nothing seems capable of going wrong. The air smelled faintly of rain drifting through the open window of my apartment, the city lights flickering like distant stars beyond the glass, and I was curled up on my couch, scrolling mindlessly through messages, thinking about how strangely lucky I had been lately. My job at the gallery was finally stable. My life felt peaceful. And most importantly, I had my best friend beside me through everything. Or at least I thought I did. My phone buzzed suddenly on the coffee table. The screen lit up with a name that made me smile automatically. Olivia. Olivia had been my closest friend for almost 7 years. We had survived university together, heartbreaks, ridiculous parties, cheap coffee mornings, and nights spent crying on each other's shoulders. She was the one person I trusted without question, the person who knew every embarrassing story about me and every secret I had never told anyone else. But that night, when I answered her call, I heard something I was never supposed to hear. At first, there was only silence, then voices. Not one voice, 2. "I'm telling you, this is the only way," Olivia's voice said quietly, sounding tense in a way I had never heard before. My brow furrowed immediately. "Olivia?" I said into the phone. No answer. Instead, a man's voice responded on the other side, low and impatient. "You promised this wouldn't become messy," he said. "If she finds out—" "She won't," Olivia interrupted sharply. "She trusts me." My heart skipped. I leaned forward slowly, gripping the phone tighter. They still hadn't realized the call had connected. "She already suspects something," the man continued. "If she talks to him—" "She won't," Olivia repeated again, more forcefully this time. "And even if she does, it won't matter. By the time she understands what's happening, it'll already be too late." A cold sensation spread through my chest. Too late for what? I tried to speak again. "Olivia?" But they kept talking as if I didn't exist. "You're taking a huge risk," the man said. "Destroying someone's life isn't exactly subtle." Destroying someone's life. I felt the words like a punch. "Relax," Olivia replied, her voice dropping into a calm tone that felt terrifyingly unfamiliar. "She has no idea what's coming." My fingers tightened around the phone. "She trusts me more than anyone." And then she laughed. It wasn't the warm, carefree laugh I knew so well. It was colder, calculated. "She won't see it coming." My stomach twisted violently. The call suddenly ended. I stared at the dark screen of my phone, my pulse thundering in my ears, trying to convince myself that I had misunderstood everything. Maybe they were talking about someone else. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe... My phone buzzed again instantly. A text from Olivia appeared. "Hey, sorry, I accidentally called you. Everything okay?" I stared at the message for a long moment. My hands felt strangely numb. Accidentally called me. Everything okay? As if I hadn't just heard her discussing the destruction of someone's life. Slowly, I typed back, "Yeah, everything's fine." The lie felt strange in my mouth, even though I had only written it. Another message appeared. "Good. Want to meet tomorrow for coffee?" I hesitated. Every instinct inside me was screaming that something was wrong. But another voice inside my head, the voice of years of friendship, kept insisting I was overreacting. Olivia had always been loyal to me. She had always protected me. She had always been my friend. "Right?" I typed again. "Sure. Same place?" Her response came immediately. "Of course. 10 a.m. I placed the phone down slowly and leaned back on the couch, staring at the ceiling while the quiet apartment suddenly felt unfamiliar. My mind replayed the conversation over and over again. Destroying someone's life. She trusts me. She won't see it coming. A chill crawled along my spine. The next morning arrived faster than I wanted it to. The cafe smelled of roasted coffee beans and cinnamon pastries, the warm sunlight pouring through the tall windows and painting golden streaks across the wooden tables. It was the same cozy place Olivia and I had visited hundreds of times before, the place where we had laughed until our stomachs hurt and shared every ridiculous detail of our lives. And yet that morning, everything felt different. I arrived early and sat near the window, watching people pass by outside while my thoughts raced endlessly. When Olivia walked in, she looked exactly the same as always. Perfect hair, bright smile, confident walk. She spotted me immediately and waved, her expression lighting up with genuine warmth as she approached the table. For a moment, my doubts almost disappeared. Maybe I had misunderstood everything. Maybe the call had nothing to do with me. "Hey," she said cheerfully, dropping into the chair across from me. "You look exhausted. Did you sleep at all?" I forced a small smile. "Not really." She studied my face closely. "Work stress again?" "Something like that," I said quietly. Olivia leaned back and took a sip of her coffee, completely relaxed. Too relaxed. I watched her carefully. "Funny thing happened last night?" I said casually. Her eyes flickered slightly. "Oh? You called me?" She froze for half a second. Just half a second. But I saw it. Then she laughed lightly. "Did I? I must have pressed the wrong contact." "You weren't alone." Her fingers tightened around her cup. "What do you mean?" "I heard someone else talking." The silence between us stretched slowly. Then Olivia smiled again, but the warmth had vanished. "Oh," she said calmly. "That?" My heart began beating faster. "Yes," I said. "That." She studied me carefully now, her eyes sharper than I had ever seen them. "What exactly did you hear?" she asked. The question sounded casual, but something inside it felt dangerous. I hesitated, and in that moment, I realized something that made my stomach drop. Olivia wasn't nervous. She wasn't scared. She was calculating. I leaned forward slowly. "I heard enough," I said quietly. Her smile returned. Slow. Cold. "Well," Olivia said softly, "that's unfortunate." The word sent ice through my veins. "Unfortunate?" I repeated. She tilted her head slightly. "Yes," she said calmly, "because now things might get complicated." My heart slammed against my ribs. "What things?" Olivia leaned closer across the table, and for the first time in 7 years, I realized I might not know my best friend at all. "You really shouldn't have heard that call," she said gently. The moment Olivia said that I shouldn't have heard the call, something inside me shifted in a way I can still feel even now when I remember it. For years I had trusted her voice more than my own instincts, yet as she sat there across from me in that warm cafe light, her eyes calm and her expression almost amused, a cold certainty began growing in my chest that the person I thought I knew might never have existed at all. I forced myself to remain still, although every nerve in my body was screaming to get up and leave. "What exactly do you mean by that?" I asked slowly, watching her face with a focus that almost hurt. Olivia stirred her coffee with deliberate calm, the small metal spoon clinking against the cup as if nothing unusual was happening. "I mean," she said gently, "that sometimes people overhear things that don't concern them and create problems that never needed to exist." Her tone was smooth and controlled, yet something dangerous lurked beneath it. "And whose life exactly were you planning to destroy?" I asked quietly. She looked directly into my eyes. For a moment I thought she might deny everything. Instead, she smiled. "You always were too curious for your own good," she said. My stomach tightened. "That doesn't answer my question." Olivia leaned back in her chair and studied me for a long moment, her gaze thoughtful in a way that made my skin prickle. "Let me ask you something first," she said. "How long have you known Daniel?" The name hit me unexpectedly. "Daniel?" I repeated. "Yes," she said calmly. "Daniel Carter." My mind immediately pictured him. Tall, composed, quietly confident in a way that seemed effortless. Daniel Carter had walked into the art gallery where I worked about 2 months earlier and somehow turned my quiet routine upside down simply by being there. He was wealthy. Everyone knew that. His family owned several international companies, and his name appeared regularly in business magazines. Yet, when he visited the gallery, he never behaved like someone who needed attention or admiration. He spoke softly, asked thoughtful questions about the paintings, and seemed genuinely interested in everything I said. At first, I had assumed he was simply being polite. Then he kept returning. Sometimes just to talk, sometimes to invite me for coffee, sometimes simply to sit quietly in the gallery and watch me work. The strange thing was that he never made me feel like I was being evaluated or pursued. If anything, his presence felt calm, steady, safe in a way I had rarely experienced before. "I've known him for a couple of months," I said carefully. Olivia nodded slowly. "And in that time," she continued, "has he told you anything about his family?" "Some things," I replied. "Anything about his business problems?" I frowned. "No." Her smile deepened slightly. "Interesting. Why?" I asked. She leaned forward again, resting her elbows on the table. "Because Daniel Carter is not simply a charming rich man who wanders into art galleries out of boredom." "I never said he was." "No," she agreed softly. "But you believed it." Something about her tone made anger flicker inside me. "Olivia, if you know something, just say it." Her eyes watched me with unsettling intensity. "Oh, I know quite a lot," she said. "About Daniel?" "Yes." "And about you?" My pulse quickened. "What does that mean?" Olivia sighed lightly, as if the conversation had become tiresome. "It means," she said slowly, "that you have unknowingly stepped into a situation much bigger than you understand." I laughed nervously. "That sounds dramatic even for you." But Olivia didn't laugh. Instead, she asked quietly, "Did Daniel ever tell you why he keeps coming to see you?" The question made my cheeks warm slightly. "No," I admitted. "But you assumed it was because he liked you." Her words stung. "I didn't assume anything." "Of course you did." She leaned closer. "People like Daniel Carter don't randomly fall in love with art gallery employees." The cruelty in her voice shocked me. "Why are you saying this?" Olivia's gaze hardened. "Because you need to understand something very important." "And what's that?" Her lips curved slowly. "You were never the main player in this story." Before I could respond, her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen. For the first time since the conversation began, something like irritation crossed her face. "Well," she said, standing up, "it seems our conversation will have to continue another time." "You're leaving?" I asked. "Yes." "You haven't explained anything." She slipped her phone into her purse. "I don't need to," she said calmly. "Why not?" "Because," she replied, her eyes locking onto mine, "the situation will explain itself soon enough." Then she turned and walked out of the cafe without another word. I sat there for several minutes after she left, trying to make sense of everything that had just happened. The cheerful morning chatter of the cafe now sounded distant and distorted, as if I were underwater. Every sentence Olivia had spoken replayed in my mind again and again, each one carrying the same unsettling implication. You were never the main player in this story. That afternoon at the gallery, something strange happened. Daniel appeared again, but this time, he didn't look calm. The moment he stepped inside, I could see tension in the way he moved, the way his eyes scanned the room quickly before settling on me. When he approached the front desk, his voice was unusually serious. "We need to talk," he said quietly. My heart skipped. That sounds ominous. It might be. I gestured toward the small office behind the gallery. "Let's go somewhere private." Once the door closed behind us, Daniel turned toward me with an expression that made my stomach tighten. "Have you spoken to Olivia recently?" he asked. The question startled me. "Yes," I said slowly. "This morning." His jaw tightened slightly. "What did she say?" "Why are you asking about her?" Daniel hesitated, then ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "Because something is happening," he said quietly, "and I think she might be involved." My chest tightened. What kind of something? Instead of answering immediately, Daniel reached into his jacket and placed a small folder on the desk between us. "You need to see this." I opened the folder. Inside were printed emails, bank transfer records, legal documents. My name appeared repeatedly, except I had never seen any of them before. "What is this?" I whispered. Daniel's voice was grim. "These documents show that someone has been moving money through several shell companies under your identity." The room seemed to tilt slightly. "That's impossible." "I know." "Then why does my name appear on all of it?" Daniel looked directly at me. "Because someone wants it to." A chill ran through me. "How much money are we talking about?" Daniel hesitated. "Almost $4 million. The number made my breath catch. $4 million? Yes. And all of it is connected to accounts that appear to belong to you. My mind began racing. This is insane. I've never even seen these accounts. I believe you. Then who would do something like this? Daniel didn't answer immediately. Instead, he asked quietly, "Did Olivia know anything about your finances?" The question felt like a punch to the chest. "She's my best friend," I said slowly. "Yes," Daniel replied. "That's exactly why I'm asking." My stomach dropped. "You think she did this?" "I think," Daniel said carefully, "that someone close to you is setting you up." Before I could respond, loud voices suddenly echoed in the gallery outside. Then the office door burst open. 2 police officers stepped inside. "Miss Carter," one of them said. My heart slammed against my ribs. "Yes?" The officer's expression was serious. "I'm afraid we need you to come with us." "For what?" He glanced briefly at the folder on the desk. "We have reason to believe you are involved in a large-scale financial fraud investigation." The words hit like thunder. "I didn't do anything," I said weakly. The officer remained calm. "You can explain that at the station." As they escorted me toward the door, I caught one last glimpse of Daniel's face. For the first time since I had met him, he looked genuinely afraid. And somewhere far away in my mind, Olivia's voice echoed again from that phone call. "She trusts me. She won't see it coming." Part 3. Act 3. The unexpected ally/discovery. The moment the police car door closed behind me, a strange silence settled in my mind. The kind of silence that only appears when reality becomes too overwhelming to process. Through the tinted window I could see the familiar streets of the city passing by, yet everything looked distorted, like a dream that had suddenly turned into a nightmare without warning. Just 24 hours earlier, I had been living a perfectly ordinary life, working at the gallery, laughing with my best friend, wondering whether Daniel might ask me to dinner again. Now I was sitting in the back of a police car being taken to the station for a crime I didn't even understand. The officer sitting in the front seat glanced back at me briefly. "You're very quiet," he said. I managed a weak smile that felt completely unnatural. "What exactly am I supposed to say?" He shrugged slightly. "Most people protest." "I did," I replied softly. "You just didn't believe me." The police station felt colder than I expected, not just physically, but emotionally, as if the walls themselves had absorbed years of tension, fear, and desperation. I was led down a narrow hallway into a small interrogation room where a metal table sat beneath the harsh white light that made everything feel uncomfortably exposed. The officers asked me to sit down, and as the door closed behind them, I felt the first real wave of fear crash through me. For the first time since the morning, I was completely alone. After several minutes, the door opened again, and 2 detectives entered the room. One of them was an older man with tired eyes and a calm expression that made him seem almost sympathetic, while the other was younger, sharper, and clearly less interested in giving me the benefit of the doubt. The older detective placed a thick file on the table. "Miss Carter," he began, sitting down across from me, "this situation would be much easier if you cooperated." "I am cooperating," I said quietly. "Then help us understand something." He opened the file and slid several documents toward me. They were the same records Daniel had shown me earlier, except now there were more of them. Bank statements, contracts, digital transfer logs, and printed emails that all carried my name like a permanent accusation. "These transactions," the detective said, tapping the papers lightly, "have been moving through multiple accounts for months. Millions of dollars have passed through them." "I've never seen those accounts before," I insisted. The younger detective leaned forward, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Your identification was used to open them." "That's impossible." "Is it?" I looked between them desperately. Someone must have stolen my identity. The older detective studied my face carefully. "That's certainly possible," he admitted slowly. "But right now the evidence suggests otherwise." My chest tightened. "So, what happens now?" The younger detective answered bluntly. "That depends on whether you're telling the truth." Before I could respond, the door behind them suddenly opened again. A woman stepped inside. She wore a dark blazer and carried a slim leather folder under her arm, her posture calm and confident in a way that immediately changed the atmosphere of the room. Her eyes moved quickly from the detectives to me, assessing the situation in seconds. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said evenly, "but this interview cannot continue." The younger detective frowned. "And you are?" She placed a business card on the table. "My name is Elena Markov. I'm her attorney." I stared at her in shock. "My attorney?" I repeated. Elena glanced at me briefly. "Yes," she said calmly. The detectives exchanged looks. "We weren't aware that Miss Carter had contacted legal representation," the older detective said. "She didn't," Elena replied. "Someone else did." My heart skipped. "Who?" Elena closed her folder and met my eyes. "Daniel Carter." A strange mixture of relief and confusion rushed through me. Daniel had sent a lawyer. The younger detective sighed with obvious frustration. "Well, that certainly complicates things." Elena remained perfectly composed. "Not really," she said. "It simply ensures that this conversation follows the law." After a few minutes of tense discussion, the detectives reluctantly ended the interrogation and left the room, promising that the investigation would continue. The moment the door closed behind them, Elena turned toward me with a far more serious expression. "You're in deeper trouble than you realize," she said quietly. "That's reassuring," I muttered. "I'm not here to reassure you," she replied. "I'm here to help you survive this." The blunt honesty in her voice made me sit up straighter. "Do you believe me?" I asked. She studied my face carefully for a long moment. "Yes," she said finally. Relief flooded through me so suddenly that I almost laughed. "Thank God." "But that doesn't change the situation," she continued. "Someone has constructed an extremely convincing financial trail that leads directly to you." "I know," I whispered. "And whoever did it," Elena added slowly, is very intelligent. My mind immediately jumped to one person. Olivia. Elena's eyes sharpened slightly. Tell me about her. So I did. I told her about our friendship, about the phone call, about the strange conversation at the cafe, and about the subtle but unmistakable change I had seen in Olivia's behavior. The more I spoke, the more Elena's expression darkened with concern. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair thoughtfully. "There's something else you should know," she said. "What?" "The man Olivia was speaking to on that call." My heart started beating faster. "You know who he is?" "Yes." "Who?" Elena opened her folder and slid a photograph across the table. My breath caught instantly. The man in the photo looked familiar. Tall, well-dressed, sharp eyes. I had seen him before, but I couldn't remember where. "His name is Victor Hale," Elena said quietly, "and he's been connected to several financial crimes over the past decade." The memory struck suddenly. "I've seen him," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "Where?" "At the gallery," I replied. Elena leaned forward immediately. "When?" "A few weeks ago," I said slowly, trying to recall the details. "He came in while Daniel was there. They spoke privately for a few minutes." Elena's eyes narrowed. "Did Daniel seem comfortable talking to him?" "No," I admitted. "Actually, he seemed angry." Silence filled the room. Then Elena said something that made my entire world tilt again. "There's something Daniel hasn't told you." My stomach dropped. "What?" She hesitated for a moment. "Victor Hale used to be his business partner." The words hit me like a shockwave. "What?" "They built several companies together," Elena continued, "but their partnership ended badly about 3 years ago." "How badly?" "Badly enough that Victor lost millions." A cold realization began forming in my mind. So Victor might be trying to destroy Daniel. Yes. And he's using me to do it. Elena nodded slowly. "That's the most likely explanation." I sat back in my chair, stunned by the scale of what was happening. "This is insane," I whispered. Elena closed her folder again. "Unfortunately," she said quietly, "it's only the beginning." Before I could ask what she meant, the door opened again. Daniel stepped inside. The moment our eyes met, I saw something in his expression that made my heart tighten. Guilt. Deep, painful guilt. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "For what?" I asked. He took a slow breath. "For not telling you the truth sooner." My voice felt unsteady. "What truth?" Daniel's eyes flickered briefly toward Elena before returning to me. "The truth about why Olivia hates you." My heart stopped. "Hates me?" I whispered. Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes." "Why?" His answer came quietly. "Because before she met you, she was with me." The room fell completely silent, and suddenly everything began to make sense. For a moment after Daniel's confession, I couldn't hear anything except the sound of my own heartbeat pounding violently in my ears. The words he had spoken seemed to hang in the air like something fragile and dangerous, something that once released could never be taken back. Olivia had been with Daniel, my best friend, my closest ally for 7 years. The room suddenly felt smaller. "How long?" I asked finally, my voice barely steady. Daniel didn't answer immediately. His eyes lowered briefly toward the table, and in that simple gesture I could already see that the truth was worse than I expected. "Almost 4 years," he said quietly. 4 years. The number felt like a blade sliding slowly into my chest. "So when I met her in college," I whispered, "you were already together." "Yes." "And she never told me." "No." The silence that followed was heavy with realization, and suddenly so many strange memories began rearranging themselves in my mind. Olivia had always asked about my job, about the people I met, about the gallery visitors. At the time, it had felt like friendly curiosity, the kind of interest a best friend shows in someone's life. But now those questions seemed different, as if they had been part of a much larger calculation. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked Daniel. His expression was tight with regret. "Because when we broke up, it wasn't simple." I looked at him sharply. "What does that mean?" Daniel ran his hand across his face slowly, as though the memories themselves were exhausting. "It means Olivia didn't accept the breakup." Something cold settled in my chest. "She became obsessed with the idea that I had betrayed her," he continued quietly, "even though the truth was that we had been growing apart for a long time." "And Victor Hale?" I asked. Daniel's jaw tightened instantly. "He took advantage of the situation." "How?" "By convincing her that I had destroyed both of their lives." The room felt suffocating now. "So they're working together," I said slowly. "Yes. And I'm their target." Daniel nodded grimly. "I believe so." Before I could respond, Elena suddenly stood up from her chair. "We don't have time to sit here discussing this," she said sharply. Daniel looked at her. "What do you mean?" Elena pulled her phone from her pocket and showed us the screen. "The police investigation has escalated," she said. "Someone just leaked additional financial evidence connecting the fraud accounts to this address." My stomach dropped. "My apartment?" "Yes." "That's impossible." Elena's expression remained calm but urgent. "Which means someone planted something there." Daniel stood up instantly. "Olivia." "Most likely," Elena agreed. A surge of anger rushed through me so suddenly that it almost made me dizzy. "She's trying to finish this," I said. Daniel met my eyes. "Yes. And if the police find whatever she planted, you'll be arrested tonight." The words landed like a hammer. For several seconds, none of us spoke. Then I pushed my chair back and stood. "I'm not letting her win." Daniel looked surprised. "What are you planning to do?" "I'm going to my apartment." "That's exactly what she expects," Elena warned. "Good," I replied quietly. Daniel studied my face. "You want to confront her?" "Yes." Elena shook her head. "That's dangerous." "So is doing nothing." Daniel exhaled slowly, clearly wrestling with the decision. Finally, he said, "I'm coming with you." My apartment building looked completely normal when we arrived, the quiet evening air carrying the familiar sounds of the city. Yet, the moment we stepped inside the lobby, I felt the strange tension of knowing that someone had invaded my life in ways I was only beginning to understand. The elevator ride to my floor felt endless. When the doors finally opened, I saw something that made my pulse spike. The door to my apartment was already open. Daniel moved slightly in front of me. "Stay behind me." But I shook my head. "No." We stepped inside together. The living room lights were on, and someone was sitting on my couch. Olivia. She looked perfectly comfortable, her legs crossed casually, as if she had simply stopped by for a friendly visit. In her hand, she held a glass of wine that I definitely had not poured for her. She smiled when she saw us. "Well," she said softly, "this is dramatic." My anger exploded. "You broke into my apartment." Olivia shrugged lightly. "Technically, the door was unlocked." "That's not the point." Her eyes moved between me and Daniel with a calm, almost amused curiosity. "I wondered how long it would take for you to figure things out." "You framed me," I said. She tilted her head. "Framed is such an unpleasant word." "Then what would you call it?" Olivia took a slow sip of wine before answering. "Justice." The word echoed coldly through the room. "Justice for what?" I demanded. Her gaze shifted toward Daniel. "For him." Daniel's voice hardened. "Olivia, stop." "No." she replied calmly. I've spent 3 years watching you live comfortably while everything you built with Victor collapsed. That wasn't my fault. Her laugh was sharp and bitter. You always say that. I stepped forward. And how exactly is ruining my life supposed to fix yours? Olivia looked at me with something close to pity. Oh, you still don't understand. Then explain it. She set the wine glass down slowly on the table. Victor needed someone to take the fall for the financial transfers, she said. Someone clean, someone believable. And you chose me? Yes. Why? Her smile returned. Because you trusted me. The cruelty of the words struck deeper than I expected. You're my best friend, I said quietly. No, Olivia replied coldly. I was your best friend. Silence filled the apartment. Then Daniel stepped forward. This ends tonight, he said firmly. Olivia's eyes flickered toward him. Does it? Yes. You're too late, she replied calmly. My heart skipped. What does that mean? Olivia nodded toward the window. You might want to look outside. I walked slowly to the glass and pulled the curtain aside. Police cars. 3 of them. Their flashing lights painted the building in red and blue. They'll be upstairs in less than 2 minutes, Olivia said softly behind me. My chest tightened with panic. You called them? Of course. Daniel's voice was filled with anger. You're insane. Olivia's smile faded slightly. No, she said quietly. I'm finally getting what I deserve. The pounding footsteps in the hallway outside were growing louder. For a moment, it truly felt like everything was lost. And then Elena spoke calmly from the doorway. That's where you're wrong. We all turned. She was holding a small recording device. Olivia frowned. What is that? Elena's expression was calm. It's a copy of your phone call from last night. Olivia's face changed instantly. The confidence vanished. For the first time, she looked afraid. You recorded me? She whispered. Elena nodded. Every word. The police knocked loudly on the door at that exact moment, and suddenly the game Olivia had started began collapsing around her. The knock on the door echoed through the apartment like the final strike of a hammer sealing fate into place. For several seconds, no one moved. The flashing red and blue lights from the police cars outside reflected across the walls and furniture, turning the familiar space into something strange and unreal. I could hear my own breathing, slow and heavy, while the weight of everything that had happened during the past 2 days pressed down on me like a storm, finally reaching its breaking point. Olivia was the first to react. Her eyes moved slowly from the door to Elena's hand, where the small recording device rested like a quiet but undeniable weapon. The confident calm that had defined her all evening was gone now, replaced by something far more fragile. You're bluffing, she said quietly. Elena didn't answer immediately. Instead, she pressed a small button. From the speaker came Olivia's voice. She trusts me. The room froze. She won't see it coming. The recording continued, the same cold conversation I had heard accidentally the night before, filling the apartment with undeniable truth. Victor's voice, Olivia's voice, plans, lies, the quiet promise of destroying my life. Olivia's face drained of color. The knock on the door came again, louder this time. "Police!" a voice called from the hallway. "Open the door!" Daniel stepped forward slowly, his gaze fixed on Olivia with a mixture of sadness and exhaustion. "It's over," he said quietly. Olivia's eyes flickered wildly between all of us, calculating something rapidly, desperately searching for an escape that no longer existed. For a moment, I thought she might simply collapse under the weight of it all. Instead, she laughed. It wasn't the cruel laugh from before. It sounded broken. "You think this recording changes everything?" she said hoarsely. Elena's expression remained calm. "Yes," she replied. Another heavy knock shook the door. Open the door now. Olivia suddenly looked at me, not at Daniel, not at Elena, at me. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I saw something real in her eyes. Pain. You still don't understand, she whispered. Then explain it, I said quietly. Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke. 3 years ago, Daniel walked away from everything Victor and I had built together. We lost everything in a matter of months. Our investments collapsed, our companies fell apart, and suddenly the life we thought we had was gone. Daniel's voice was calm but firm. That wasn't my decision alone. No, Olivia said bitterly, but you were the one who survived it. Her gaze returned to me. And then I met you. My chest tightened. You were kind, she continued quietly. Trusting. Loyal. You treated me like family without ever questioning why I seemed to appear in your life so suddenly. The police knocked again. Last warning! Olivia barely seemed to hear them now. I hated how easy it was, she said softly. All I had to do was wait, gain your trust, learn everything about your life. I felt a cold ache spreading through my chest. And the whole time you were planning this. Yes. Why? Her eyes filled slowly with something that looked almost like regret. Because I thought ruining your life would make mine feel less empty. The honesty of the confession hung in the air like a heavy shadow. For a moment, none of us spoke. Then Daniel walked toward the door. I'm letting them in, he said quietly. Olivia didn't try to stop him. The door opened. 2 police officers stepped inside quickly, their eyes immediately assessing the scene. Elena raised the recording device slightly. I believe this will clarify the situation, she said calmly. Within minutes, the apartment filled with voices, questions, movement, and the quiet shifting of a story finally unraveling. The officers listened to the recording, examined the evidence Elena had brought, and slowly began piecing together the truth that had been hidden beneath layers of deception. Victor Hale's plan, the stolen identities, the financial transfers, the attempt to frame me. Olivia stood silently while they placed handcuffs around her wrists. She didn't resist. As the officers guided her toward the door, she paused beside me. For a moment, we simply looked at each other. 7 years of friendship, 7 years of trust, all shattered in a matter of days. I never expected you to fight back, she said quietly. I never expected you to betray me, I replied. She nodded slowly. Fair enough. Then she was gone. The police cars drove away one by one, their flashing lights fading into the darkness of the street until the night returned to its normal quiet. Inside the apartment, everything felt strangely empty. Daniel stood near the window, watching the last police car disappear around the corner. It's finally over, he said softly. But Elena shook her head slightly. Not completely. We both looked at her. What do you mean? I asked. She closed the recording device and placed it carefully back in her folder. Victor Hale is still out there. A chill ran down my spine. So this might not be finished. No, Elena said calmly. But tonight was a major step. Daniel turned toward me slowly. I'm sorry, he said quietly. If I had told you the truth earlier, none of this might have happened. I studied him for a moment. You didn't know Olivia would go this far. No, he admitted. Silence settled between us. Finally, I walked toward the window and looked out at the quiet city below. The same streets that had seemed so ordinary just days earlier now felt different, as if I had suddenly seen the hidden layers beneath the surface of everything. Funny, I said softly. Daniel raised an eyebrow. What is? I keep thinking about that phone call. The one you accidentally answered? Yes. I shook my head slightly. That single moment changed everything. Elena nodded thoughtfully. Sometimes the smallest events reveal the biggest truths. I watched the lights of the city stretching into the distance, wondering how many secrets were hidden behind them, how many lives were quietly shifting in ways no one could see. "So what happens now?" Daniel asked. I thought about the question for a long moment. Olivia was gone. My name would eventually be cleared. Victor Hale would likely try something again someday. But despite everything, I was still standing. And that meant something. "I move forward," I said quietly. Daniel smiled faintly. "That sounds like a good plan." But even as the words left my mouth, I knew something had changed inside me forever. Trust would never come as easily again, and the memory of that phone call would always remain somewhere in the back of my mind as a quiet reminder. Because sometimes the people closest to us know exactly how to destroy us. And sometimes the only thing that saves us is hearing the truth at the exact moment we were never meant to. The phone call that ruined my life had also saved it. And even now, when my phone rings late at night, I sometimes wonder what secrets might be hiding on the other side of the line. Not every betrayal announces itself. Some arrive quietly, through a single call, a single conversation, and a truth that was never meant to be heard.